We are live this time with Networking with Nathaniel, a real estate podcast, an entrepreneurial podcast where I get to talk to high-level individuals, ask them about their journeys, ask them about any tips and tricks and hints that they can offer along the way to help myself and you all out there reach the goals that you're trying to reach. Today, I have a local real estate investor to me that I have never actually met in person before. She's been flipping here locally and beyond. Oh, I don't know for how long yet, so I'm curious to find that out. But her experience, she's gained so much knowledge that she's opened up a school community to help other investors flip houses and scale their businesses. She also offers one-on-one coaching. Without further ado, hello, Steph.
Hey, thank you so much. How are you?
I'm doing well. I hit live the second time, go live the
Oh,
second time, so we made we made it happen. I hope I
awesome.
did. I guess I did forget to leave. I did leave a couple things out that I think are very interesting things about you that we probably won't talk a whole lot about. Is that you're an Ironman? You and your husband are Ironman athletes, which is um, a feat that not many of us can, me included, can say that we are. So that's really impressive. And I didn't mention that you're also a mother of a soon-to-be 3-year-old. So you have a little toddler going about as well.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I like to just start off the show by kind of asking what you're working on. I did hint a couple things there, but what's the big focus for Stephanie right now?
Yeah. So the biggest focus for me right now, so I've been a real estate investor for almost 10 years, which is crazy when I say that out loud because I feel like I age myself. Like I don't really feel that I could have been doing that for so long. So and with that, over the last few years, I have transitioned a little bit more into the coaching space, being able to coach and mentor other newer investors looking to scale. So that's like my primary focus right now is my school community. We have on the school platform. So I have a free community that we've been growing. We've grown to over, I think we have maybe close to 1,200 members in just the couple of months that we've opened. So that's really cool. And then of course I have a coaching community as well. So that's my primary focus. But my husband and I also, we still invest today. So we have our projects and stuff that we're working on too.
Yeah. And you have, I said that you're doing it locally and beyond. Am I correct there, or is it really all just locally Aiken and Augusta, Georgia?
Yeah, so I started flipping when I first got into real estate and I sort of fell into it. I was working with a small firm and we were buying foreclosures all over the country. So I
Okay.
actually learned how to flip properties out of state first, like sight unseen, and be able to build up a team and flip remote. So that's how I started. I'm in such a good market in the Aiken, South Carolina, Augusta market. And so I just sort of naturally brought it back home and ended up staying. So I've been flipping locally since 2016. I think my first flip I did here in Aiken. And we also have a rental portfolio, which is local. And part of the reason is we're just in a good market.
Yeah.
So we don't have a need to go out of our market now. Though I have flipped all over the country too, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Are there any, I know that there are differences between flipping remotely and flipping locally, but are there any things that carry over between the two that like are must-haves for people that are flipping either remotely or locally?
So I think I think people who want to start flipping, I think if you can flip locally first, I think is going to be the easier way. And it's easier only because you have familiarity with the area and you likely have a better network. So when people are looking to pick a market, I always think start like in your backyard if you can. But often people can't because of inventory or money or deal flow or whatever that looks like for them, typically price point.
Hmm.
And so then, of course, we need to look out of the market. And I don't think that there is a big difference except for your market knowledge. So when you're starting to invest out of state, it takes like you just have a longer learning curve to get familiar with that market, especially for a newer investor who maybe doesn't know what to look for and ask in a market versus somebody like, I know you had said you were investing locally and then have gone out of state. Is that right?
But we're doing majority out of state at this point. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but when you went out of state, you already knew some of the things to look for because you had been investing locally. I'm, of course, speaking for you, but that's typically how it goes. So a newer investor, it's going to take them a little bit longer. But when I was really ramping up my flip business here locally, I built out a team and I was flipping like in Augusta, which is like a half-hour drive from me. And I didn't go to the properties. Like I didn't personally go and walk them. I had my team do it for me. And so even though I was close by, I was managing remotely. And even now, my husband, he retired from his job a couple years ago. And so he's sort of our project manager. And so it's the
Okay.
same thing. I like look for deals and analyze deals like in my office. And he goes and does the boots on the ground stuff. So
Okay.
I think if you can overcome that false sense of control that people have from like being able to physically go to the property and they learn how to set up the systems to do it like you have, you're better to be able to scale it that way. It's just a
Yeah.
lot of time to go to properties. It's so much
I
time.
yeah, I agree. When we were wholesaling, I feel like I spent so much time driving back and forth, like looking at houses, and like then the one doesn't work out, you just feel down, down in the dump, so to speak. But you um, you mentioned something kind of there where we have this like security blanket of I can go drive to the property and I can do something if needed, or just the mindset that we have to get over of not going and seeing the property, because I make the association sometimes with people where if I'm going to buy stock, just like a stock in a company like Apple, for example, I don't go walk the company floor. I just know the fundamentals of the company and know that it would be a good or poor investment. And so it's the same thing
Right.
with real estate, at least for me, is like, did the numbers look right? Do I have somebody that I trust that has gone and seen it and verified that there is a house there and it's not in worse condition than it's supposed to be, and then move forward, right? It sounds
Yeah.
like you got, yeah. Um,
No, exactly. I think it's, you said a key thing is you just, you have the person do that thing. Like somebody, of course, needs to go physically to the property and verify the information and do all of that. But it doesn't have to be you. You just have to come up with it, have the systems and processes in place in order to, be able to guide that person on what they're looking for, know the right questions to ask, and then be able to handle the things that come up. And I had a woman I was working with who was investing from South Florida up in Georgia. And she was kind of on the fence, like, should I come and see the houses and all this? Like, what about the construction part? And I was like, well, what do you know about construction? She was like, well, nothing. I was like, well, if you came to the property, would you know the right questions to ask the contractor about the structure or framing or anything? And she was like, well, no. And I was like, okay, so it doesn't really
yeah, it
solve
doesn't help.
anything by you physically coming here.
Mm.
So
It just like it takes a little bit of a weight off our shoulders, so to speak. Like, oh yeah, I can see that. I can go see the house when I want to. But Effie mentioned that she just got burned by a contractor because she didn't go see that he wasn't performing. I'm assuming this is um, a remote project that you were working on, Effie. You know what they say about assuming, but is there another piece that you would put in place when you're managing a project remotely besides just having a contractor there? Somebody maybe that would be quote unquote looking over their shoulders.
yeah, you need to have a third party, like you need to have a third party person verify the information for you. So there's a lot of stuff that you can check with your contractor. Ideally you're hiring your contractor through a referral if you can to start, but that's not always the case. So you hire the contractor. There's a lot of stuff that you can verify, like that they've actually put paint on the walls, all sorts of things like that. But you can't always tell the quality of work that they're doing, and that's
Right.
where at some critical stages within the renovation, you would need somebody to check it for you, whether it's at like a big draw or a certain timeline, right? If he's finishing up like if he's finishing up sheetrock, maybe you want to have someone walk through and check that the finish is done well before they put paint on it. So you don't have to have someone necessarily checking your contractor daily, but having someone go and verify before you're releasing some funds. But I'll tell you, I've had contractors locally who I've gotten into trouble with local contractors too. So again, being local or remote doesn't always prevent that. So
Yeah. Something that we've done is, depending on what our strategy is, either holding it or flipping it, selling, fixing it to sell it, we'll incorporate that. The third party would be either the property manager or a realtor who's going to ultimately sell it. And I go, hey, we want to provide you with the best product so you can have the best opportunity to do your job. If you just go check on this thing once a week,
yeah,
for the next 6 weeks, it helps us make sure everything's moving along. Because you mentioned that you may see that, like, yeah, the wall was physically painted, but because you're looking at it through a phone, you can't, like, it's streaky, or it really needs a second coat, or like they didn't do a good job cutting the floorboards and the baseboards and making sure that those are all nice and neat and good looking. So having somebody that knows what they're looking for, a realtor that you've vetted, a property manager that you've vetted, that can go in there and verify these things. And like you said, before releasing funds,
yeah.
which we've had those issues as well. But yeah, uh, you mentioned a couple's different school communities, I think, unless
Mm-hmm.
I'm mistaken. So one of
Yeah,
them's free and one of them's paid for.
correct. Yeah.
Okay, is it? And I'm asking this a little bit out of school curiosity myself, because
Okay.
I just started a school community for fit fathers to get take control of their health and their wellness. But um,
Love it.
does the free one, do you get like 90% of the paid stuff? Is that, I don't know how to ask that question better. And then people eventually move into the paid program, or are they two kind of separate things?
So they're two physically separate communities. So one is called, so my coaching business is called Flip an Empire.
Yeah.
And, just to be able to build your real estate empire. And now everything is flipping something. So the one is Flip and Launch, which is really to kind of get started.
Okay.
And so that's the free community. I have like a course in there that's exclusive to that community. I do a call every week there. That's free to come to. There's replays, there's other resources, so on and so forth, that we do in that community. And then in the paid community, which I actually just opened this week, kind of
Okay.
to the masses, if you would, I've been primarily just working with people more on a one-to-one, like kind of a group and then hybrid model, which is still available, but I've opened it up just to the group format. And so inside of there, they have their own courses and resources, calls, and so on, and in kind of a separate community. And the purpose for that, one, I think it's important for there to be two different containers, because the people who are in a free community, I mean, kind of anybody watching this, if you've been on the internet, you've probably been in some kind of
Yeah.
Facebook group. A free community often there's typically a lot of people and a lot of different conversations happening, and often it's for people to just kind of get their feet wet. And I find, especially with real estate investing, people kind of need a long runway to even just believe that the thing is possible for them. So that's the nice part about that community, and it's often tailored to people who are just trying to find their way, some experienced, some not. And then so in the other community, it's a bit more focused. People are kind of actually doing the thing or ready to do the thing.
Right.
So the quality of conversation is different. I personally love being in communities. Like, I'm in a bunch of, I don't know how many school communities I'm in right now, but I love being in coaching communities and mastermind communities, because you can learn so much from other people. And the internet is just amazing. Now, we're of course meeting and collaborating over the internet, even though we could probably drive and meet for a cup of coffee. But the value that you can get from people online is just pretty cool. So, and we didn't have that as much when I first started. So that's the purpose of the two containers, is more for like a high level of conversation,
I like that.
and not just the resources.
Yeah. I that was recommended to us when we started ours. Is like, have a free one where you're giving away a bunch of stuff, and then as you upgrade your materials, your coursework, then you create a paid one. I'm finding that people in the free one are treating it as a free group and they're just not engaging and getting the full value out of what we are pouring into it. I know it's different. Effie, I put the paid community there, the link right below. The links will be in the show notes as well for you guys listening out there to go join either the paid or the free one. Stephanie's got a lot more she's going to offer us right now, as far as tips and stuff as we're moving along. Have you learned, since wait, when did you start coaching? When did you start the coaching? I think you mentioned it, but
Um, early 2023. So I'm coming up on, yeah, it's been
okay.
about a little over a year and a half or so.
Okay.
I've started my like coaching business, in a more formal sense, I suppose.
Yeah. I'm like, what have you learned from coaching people that you've been able to translate into your flipping your real estate business?
Oh, I think I think going through the coaching business, I have a little bit more. I don't even know if this is if I'm going to say it the right way, but I think I have more empathy for people in a way. Like I think I have an easier time meeting people where they are than I did before.
Hmm.
So now when I go back and think, like even meeting with contractors or realtors or other investors, whoever, right? Like because when obviously with real estate and any business, you have different players, and with real estate investing, it's usually like one-off contractor type relationships.
Yeah.
But I can meet people where they are a little bit better, I think,
Hmm.
now that I've been in a more of a coaching role. So it's less focused on me and trying to understand the person on the other side. I can see deficiencies in my business sometimes about what I say. Like I know the right way to do things and the right way I would teach you to do it. And there's some shortcuts that I do take in my own business,
Hmm.
which maybe isn't right. There's some things I do, I'm sure, that I wouldn't necessarily advise you to do. Um, and
Interesting.
some things I've adopted, yeah, just things I've adopted over time in my own business that I probably in hindsight wouldn't have set up that way. I probably could go back and change it.
Yeah.
Um, I think those are the biggest things. I think those are the two biggest things.
Yeah. It's once you've been doing the thing for so long, this, I guess it still does apply. We call it teach to learn. Like the best way for you to ingrain things into your mind, into your just being, is by teaching other people how to do the thing.
Mm.
You've been flipping since before, what, 2016. Before that, even, you mentioned with another fund. Um, so the teach to learn maybe isn't, it's not ingraining as much in you. But interesting that you brought up the, um, you know, do what I say, kind of, not what I do so much, kind of, so to speak. Yeah.
I know, and it's like I'm like saying that I was like maybe that's the wrong thing to say, but there's just certain things that I probably do, and maybe I do because I've been able to. Um, I have learned the practical lessons, and so I can skip some steps if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
I already know the things that got me. Maybe it's just sort of skipping over the granular steps, right? Like for example, I don't get a home inspection when I buy a flip. I don't get a home inspection. For a new
Yeah.
investor, I would tell you to get a home inspection. I think it's stuff like that maybe, if I'm saying like do as I say, not as I do, or termite inspection, some of those things. And I am making a conscious choice not to do them based on my experience, but I wouldn't advise a new investor to do
Right.
that.
Yeah. Interesting. You know that the percentages of something coming up is, you know, relative to where your risk tolerance is. And when a person is just starting out, you can't afford to have a big surprise like, hey, if we would have just done that inspection, we would have found that the electrical panel wasn't yada 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 yada. Yeah.
Right. And I know what I need to look at. And so, and I guess from a coach perspective, there's a little bit of like, that's the they need to have some extra protections in place that I can't give them, because there are so many little things that can come up in a property that I may not say, hey, did you remember to
Right.
check the panel? Because there's so many things. So that's where they need to have some of those other systems in place, I guess. So,
Yeah.
again, with your risk level, I've done so many projects and I've overcome so many things that my confidence that I can handle what comes up is quite high, right?
Yeah.
So versus a newer investor, we go through a home inspection and there's like hundreds of things on there and they're freaking out. And I'm like, this is nothing. This is okay, because you have the level of experience to be able to manage it. Does that make
Yeah.
sense? So,
Um, from your flipping perspective, like just put the flipper hat on. What are there specific things that you're looking for in a property, 3 bed, 2 bath, corner lot, brick, um, those types of things that like, oh, this is a go for me.
yeah, so we have a pretty specific buy box that we look at. I will look outside of it a little bit. So buy box just meaning the criteria in which I want to, the criteria of that property. So we have a price point we like to stay in. I don't like doing luxury flips. That's probably my first one. I want to stay at the median home value or under. Um, I would rather do 20 properties that are going to give me a 25 or 30K profit than a handful of luxury deals.
Yeah.
So that's my biggest thing is price. Obviously, taking into consideration, like you have to look at, if you're flipping properties specifically, you have to look at the property from the end buyer perspective, right? So you have to understand the neighborhood. You have to look at things like in my market in particular, having a master on the main floor is really important. So like that, those are some things I would look for. Of course, in my price point, the bed bath ratio isn't horrible, but at some point you need to have a 3-2 or an appropriate number of bathrooms with a property. So I think my biggest thing is just truthfully is the price point. Um, and the rest of it we're okay to handle. But just understanding and going back to your comps and making sure that you're being really objective when you're looking at your comps and not inflating the property to be more than it is.
Yeah. On that note, because you have so much experience at this point, especially here locally, you may not be doing this, but are you before you make a like, hey, let's move forward on this decision, are you involving your realtor or realtors, whatever your thing is, just say, hey, what are you seeing? Confirm my numbers? Or is that like, nah, that's past me now?
No, I still check my numbers. So I am licensed. I'm a licensed realtor in
Okay.
South Carolina and Georgia.
Okay.
But I do always still check my numbers with someone else. So I'll verify, like I look at a deal and I'll send it to either a realtor friend or an investor friend. Like I've got a couple flipper buddies in the area and I'm like, hey, what do you think about this? So I always check my value with someone else. I now work with my husband, and so he's I guess he was my first student. So he's been trained
Yeah.
up. And so my husband is quite good at looking at the numbers, and we'll have conversations around comps, but I always check it. And so what I teach in my program is really to do your deal analysis and get to the deal really fast. Like understand the numbers, be able to make offers really quickly and just get into a deal really fast. But you always have to verify, and you should verify with someone else because it can be quite emotional. I don't know if you notice that, but I think investing, flipping houses, real estate, and real estate in general is just so emotional. And we can kind of create a scenario in our minds. And so you need to have an objective opinion of your realtor or another investor or somebody else.
Yeah. I love that. The emotional for me is like, I just want to do deals. I just want to like create opportunities and like and so when when things start to fall apart, I get emotional that way. But then like you're saying, like, oh yeah, I think I could see somebody buying this house at this price point. Like, no, 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 no. Don't I think. What are the other what are houses in that area selling for? What do they look like? How do they compare to the ones that we're doing? And how can we make this one as close to those as possible so I know this is my end result? Um, Effie asked if 25 to 30K is your average spread, because you mentioned the 30 properties at like 25 a piece. And then I would ask a follow on as like, how are you calculating where your offers would be in order to get to spreads like that?
Yeah, so probably right now for like if we're buying something at a under 200 or ARV, right? If our ARV is like under 200, 250 is kind of where I like to be. Um, we're right now typically around 30 to 40K is how we've been trending lately. Though like 25 is like my minimum profit that I want to see on a property. And I don't think anyone, if you're doing deal analysis, I think 25 should be your bare minimum, and that's using your conservative numbers. And then for a deal analysis, I use the 70% rule. So I just do your after repaired value times 70% minus your rehab as my baseline. And I will literally just put it on my calculator and see if I'm within that ballpark. And then of course, if I think I've got a good deal, I'll do like a deeper dive on the property and make sure, verify it and make sure it makes sense. So, but yeah, I don't want to go under 25,000. I also look at the project ROI is what I call it, which is just my profit as a percentage in comparison to like the costs, right? Your acquisition and your rehab costs. So I want to see what my profit is in comparison to that, because 30,000 on a property you have, 400,000 in is not that great of a return, in my opinion. Though I have a guy I'm working with and he's in California and they'll take like an 8%. And I'm like, whoa. So
Okay, yeah. So it's a combination of a couple different factors to get you to the green light, move forward.
yeah, I mean, it's like looking at a business. It's
Yeah.
fine to say that, my business in my business in this house, I make $30,000 in profit. But if it took you 500,000 to get 30K and it took me 130,000 to get to 30K, I think I'm doing pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah.
So I like
Interesting.
to look at that. I think it's worthwhile to keep that in mind.
Are you also factoring a time frame into that number? Like if it's going to take me 3 months as opposed to 6 weeks, I want to make a little bit more, or
Yeah, I think too, from our, like, just because of what we like to do, we do like those less complicated projects that we can move through a little bit quicker. But I would definitely, that would be a big consideration, right? So when I'm looking with some of my students' projects and they've got something and they're gonna make 30K or 40K, and I'm not by any means turning my nose up at that. But if it's like a full, like 120,000 full gut rehab, that's going to take a long time and there's some more risk involved in that, you want to look at it and say, is this worth it? Because again, I could probably go back and find a less complicated renovation where I can make 30K, where on a big project like that, where there is, a bit more risk and more time frame, I would want to make more.
yeah,
But that's at the choice of the investor. And so for me personally, I would want to make more, but some people are like, I don't care. Like, I just want to do a deal and get in it. And if I make 20 or 30,000, like I'm happy.
right.
And I think on that note, not to go off on a tangent, but I think when an investor is first starting, and we'll talk, obviously we've been talking about flipping for the most part, but I think just getting experience, is the experience you have with doing a flip is so valuable. Like your first deal, you learn so much. And you can't learn all of those things until you do it. So again, it's like not to turn your nose up at a dollar figure, but just getting in it and getting it done will be good. I asked a question in my community, like if you did a flip, I can't remember how I worded it. It was much more, it's going to sound much better written than I'm going to say it out loud.
Yeah.
But it was just like, would you do a flip if you didn't make any money on it? You didn't lose any money, but you didn't make any money. And most people said, yeah, because I would just want to have the experience. a handful of people are like, well, I'm not in the business of working for free, which I get, but it's like,
Yeah.
well, we're not intentionally doing it for free,
Right.
but so I think there's value in that too. So I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I went off
Oh no,
on you.
that's good. That's all good. I would probably say, to answer your question, like at this point, I probably wouldn't.
I wouldn't intentionally, and I wouldn't
Yeah,
suggest that a new investor intentionally does it for free either. Like there's still, but I'm just saying
I
if
see.
you came out of a deal
Yeah,
and you didn't make any money, but you learned something and you then had that experience to apply, with that, basically, would
yeah,
that be valuable to you? And of course it
wow.
is.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, because
Yeah.
you don't know what the things that you take away from that, even if it's just from a mindset standpoint. Like, man, things went wrong, but I was able to continue pushing through, and like, you don't realize how valuable those things are, for a to have a long, lengthy career with.
Yeah.
Effie asked another one here. Are you buying traditionally only, or do you buy creatively as well?
I only buy, I'm assuming this, I mean, I'd love to have a bit more context, but I just buy traditionally. For the most part, I buy off the MLS, and I have a couple wholesalers that I work with.
Yeah.
That's what she means. I use private money for all my deals, and yeah, that's it.
When she's saying creatively, and I'm assuming here just because Effie and I are in the same creative finance communities, she's talking about like sub two,
Yeah,
seller finance. Yeah.
I
Um,
figured. I figured, but no,
yeah.
I don't do any of that personally.
And you mentioned private money here. Is that purely you're only using private money, a private money lender, or is this a combination of like a hard money with a private money lender as a gap?
I only use private money now. When I
Yeah.
first started, I used hard money with a private. Uh, I used Gap from a private money lender,
Okay.
but I have 3 private money lenders that I use now, and that will fund all my deals.
Yeah, that's amazing. You just cycle through them. I think we talked about this in text. How many do you typically have going at any given time? Not lenders, but projects, or
Yeah,
both.
so we've sort of slowed down quite a bit since I have been focusing a bit more on this business and since having my daughter and all of that. So we probably have like 2, 3, 4, maybe kind of at any stage coming through.
Okay.
Um, and so that's enough for us now. When I was flipping at scale, we were doing, I probably have about 10 projects going at a time. And that I was running that business on my own and my real estate team. But we
Wow.
kind of just keep a steady flow. We were doing flips and our burrs because we scaled up our rental portfolio pretty quickly. And then, or quickly for us anyway.
Yeah.
And then, but yeah, we have a few going now. My husband was a tennis pro his most of his life. And so 2 years ago, he retired from that job when we had our rentals and just kind of came over into the flip. So he runs our projects. He goes and checks in and runs those projects. And he's still, I'm not training for any Ironmans, but he's still very much in the Ironman
Okay.
space. So he goes and trains, spends a few hours a day training, a couple hours checking projects or rental stuff, and then hangs out with our daughter. So that's
That's
his
awesome.
routine. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good one. Uh,
Yeah.
we're coming up, as we're recording this live right now. We're coming up on the end of 2024.
Mhm.
What are the big Q1 moving into Q2 25 goals for Stephanie?
Good question, because I don't know that I probably should map them out a little bit better on paper from a time perspective.
Mm,
I would like to do a larger, I'd like to buy an apartment complex or 100 doors, or I probably should just say I want to buy 100 doors in 2025 and just make that happen. So that's a big one for me. I'd like to add significant volume to our portfolio, and I just want to do it in one transaction if I
yeah.
can, or maybe a couple. That's one. I'm in a couple of different masterminds on school, and I have some opportunity to travel to go to some in-person events. So that's something, I know that's not really a business goal per se, but to be able to meet and network with some more
Yeah.
entrepreneurs. I want to continue to, of course, grow this grow this business. I really love it. I love the coaching business and be able to grow that. And maybe a half Ironman.
Oh, okay. What does an Ironman entail? Is this?
Okay.
Oh yeah, I'm
A
thinking
full
maybe.
Ironman is a full Ironman is a 2.4 mile swim. I'm gonna sound like
Okay.
I don't know what it is. It's a 2.4 mile swim. It's a 112-mile bike ride, and it's a 26.2 mile run. So a marathon.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
So it's
That's even more intense than I thought.
140.6 miles across the whole race.
Yeah, that's
So
intense.
that's a full Ironman, and a half, of course, is half. So that's 70.3.
Okay.
And I started Ironman,
Gosh,
huh?
I said, gosh, like that. It's a full day.
It is a full day.
Yeah.
I've only done one full. I've done a bunch of halves.
Okay.
I did one full and it took me almost 15 hours. My husband came in after and we did our first full Ironman together, and I think he's trying to hit like a sub 10 or sub 11
Wow.
hour. So yeah, my husband's been to the world championships for both the half distance and the full distance. So in 2023, we went to Nice, France, and he competed in the world championships, which was very
That's
cool.
dope. Okay.
Yeah. And so I'm the like mediocre Ironman in the house. But
Yeah.
I did a half at 4 months postpartum, and then another one at 7 months postpartum. And I haven't done one since. I wouldn't recommend that to anybody to
Yeah, I
do
don't think so.
after
Yeah.
having that baby. But anyway,
Yeah,
so
Brittany would be like, nah, I'm not even gonna try. No, not
it
interested.
wasn't. I don't know
Yeah.
why. I think I was like I think I was so afraid of like losing my identity after I had my daughter, I think. And so I really just held on to that. I mean, Ironman really, like, I got sober in 2017, I think. And then, and I adopted Ironman, which is pretty typical of people who are like, who had struggled with addiction or anything like that is pretty common to be an endurance sport. So I held
Okay.
on to Ironman, and it really helped me with all of that. And so I think after I had my daughter and I was scared I wasn't going to be able to do Ironman anymore, I didn't know, I don't know. I guess I was worried I was going to lose something. So I think I did those races to sort of prove something. And then I was like, okay, I'm fine now. I'm tired. Like, I'm
Yeah.
okay. So I haven't done one since. So
That's pretty. I
anyway.
mean, that's pretty incredible because it's not like at 9 months pregnant or 8 months pregnant you're out there training for an Ironman. So I mean, you can do a little bit, but not really.
Yeah, I didn't run at all I didn't run my whole pregnancy. We were sort of like a high risk pregnancy. So I wasn't allowed to run
Okay.
or anything like that. So, um, but yeah, so it was hard. And I remember, so you build up such a base for that. And I think it's like with anything, right? It's like even with flipping houses, like if you've banked so much experience and miles essentially.
Mm.
So if you had to go back to it, you can kind of pull from that, because a lot of that stuff is just mindset. I mean,
Yeah. Right.
there's a physical component to it, but it's like if you have the mindset to be able to go out and move your body or whatever that hard thing is for 6 or 12 or 15 hours uninterrupted. And it's no different than in business. If you have to, like, you just have to do the hard thing for a long time, and it does get easier.
Yeah. That sounds like Alex Somozy over here talking.
Well, true. And so I'm in he had a private coaching cohort that he did on school,
Mm.
and called the 100. I don't know if you were on school when he announced that,
No.
but yeah, you had to apply for it. And the application was super intense. It was like, don't enter this if you aren't going to put in the work, like you'll be publicly shamed by me, and like all this stuff. And you had to fill out an application and submit a video, and I did. And then
Okay.
like 6 or 8 weeks later, I was a bit scared too, because I was like, am I going to be able to like hold up to this? And I did. I applied, and then I was accepted in, and they gave you 24 hours notice, like, of being accepted. And they're like, the challenge starts like in 24
Oh wow.
hours, like take it
Wow.
or leave it. But that's what he said. He actually said, I have it written on my wall. And he said, your work works on you more than you work on it. You're the product that's getting built more than your community. And remember that. And a friend of mine and
Ah,
I were talking with real estate. We were talking about how much of a personal development component there is with real estate investing. And I don't know if you can, like from your experience, just how much you've been able to grow as a person and
oh
an
yeah,
entrepreneur as you go through your journey of through real estate investing. So it's
yeah.
just like doing the hard thing.
That's it's a reason I'm so excited for my Fit Fatherhood school community is like it's another thing, it's another challenge, it's another thing to go push through. And I also
Yeah.
think, like you're saying, like it's gonna cause me to grow in different ways, and then I can come back and bring to my real estate business things that I would not have known otherwise if I hadn't gone down this other venture with my friend Zach. I wanted to. Oh yes, so it sounds like be, besides growing your portfolio 100 doors, which we could talk about as well, but I want to be respectful of time. With regards to your school communities, what do you see as being big roadblocks in being able to grow them out and help the people the way you want to?
Um, I think so. I think there's two parts. I think from like just a practical like business standpoint, it just comes down to volume. So it's just getting in front of enough people from a growth perspective. But for me, I think there's a couple components. I think I struggled a lot last year. I'm gonna be honest. I struggled a lot last year because it can be really hard to put yourself out there with and share your experience and feel like maybe my strategy doesn't chalk up to someone else's, or there can be a bit of that imposter syndrome to it. Like there would be times where I'm like, am I really qualified to say this? And then I kind of look through. I had a coach at the time who told me to like write all my achievements down, and you can kind of write your achievements down and you're like, okay, yeah, I am qualified.
Yeah,
So for me, transitioning from something that I knew how to do really well for myself to teaching someone to do it was kind of a big leap there. And when I started talking about real estate, I'm like, I know so much about this topic because I've been
yeah,
doing it for so long. But so I think there's that component. So that's a bit of a mindset thing, which I feel like I'm on the other side of. And I've just sort of accepted the fact that like there's people who are going to want to work with me, and that's awesome. And there's people who aren't going to want to work with me, and that's totally fine. There's a
yeah,
strategy that works for you that doesn't work for me. So, um, and then it's just finding the right people. So I really want people to win. Don't I don't just set up the classroom and show up for an hour and leave. Like I'm quite invested in what people are doing, and I want people who want to put the work in. I want them to win, because
yeah,
if you're willing to show up and do it, you want to be able to help them. Um, so that was the big thing, and then um, there's a trust component, especially with real estate investing. If I were to go and start a business on like how to build a website, maybe the guy who's has a coaching program about building a website would challenge me on this, but there's not a lot of risk involved in that. There maybe is
mm,
time risk and there's a little bit of money risk, but there's a lot of trust that goes into the process of getting into real estate investing. And so um, building that trust with people is big. Knowing that you can help people and how to avoid, how to help them not fail as best you can. Can't
yeah,
guarantee that. And then there's just so much like bad guru stuff in the space too. So
yeah. That's my last week's guest made that mention as well. And he what did he differentiated a guru, a coach, and a mentor. Where the guru was just trying to, and I don't know if I'd necessarily agree with the terminology, but this is how he described it. It's like a guru wants to get you into their program and then sell you their affiliate links so they can just make more money off of you in perpetuity. A coach wants to bring you into his coaching program and he wants to help you, but only as long as you keep paying him. Where a
mhm.
mentor is like somebody that's just out, wants to see you succeed no matter how, no matter where you're at in their program. So I thought it was interesting to kind of differentiate the three. And I wanted to highlight something that you mentioned there about the imposter syndrome, because we have it when we're starting out. We have it after we do our first deal. We have it the first time we talk to somebody about how we do deals. Like it's not something that goes away. right? Whether you're at where we're at or you're where freaking Grant Cardone is at, there's still
Yeah.
something. There's always a bigger fish. There's always something to be striving for, and there's always some reason why you have, these mental blocks, right? Oh yeah, Effie, I love Effie. Um, as we're transitioning to the end of the hour here. Oh no, wait, I did have a follow-on question. How are you getting people into the community right now?
Of course I post on Instagram, not quite as much as I used to. For the most part, is through ads. I'm running
Okay.
ads.
Okay. Is that
Yeah.
Facebook, Google? Was that
Yeah,
where's the
Facebook, Meta, Facebook, Instagram ads for the most
Okay.
part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been working out for you. So I mean, you would well, yeah.
Ads work because you can just buy attention.
Yeah.
So I get to show up around, I can force people to see my stuff. And so it works well in combination with organic. And
Yeah.
the nice thing, I was really hesitant to start a free community for a long, long time. Um, I think partly there is a little bit of a fear if I like give all the stuff away for free, like, am I going to really have anything left?
Yeah.
And you will have stuff left. And of
Yeah.
course you're providing value for free, right? With your time here right now. Um, but I love my free community. I really enjoy having a free community too. So,
Yeah.
um,
Dang.
but yeah, I don't know
I
where
was
that
like,
went. I just like it.
yeah. Yeah. I appreciate it. The paid ads is not something that is on our radar right now, but I think um thank you, Effie. It sounds like you're getting ready to leave. If you're Thanks for being here. Uh
Bye.
it
Hope to see
sounds
you
like
soon.
the ads is something that I think is going to be a necessary component to bringing the right people into the community, just because you're able to target who you want to get in front of, and you're able to just get their eyeballs on it. Do you have any book recommendations, any podcast recommendations? There are documentaries that have helped you overcome hurdles, helped you when you were getting started, anything like that, or just something that Stephanie's interested in as an Ironman crazy mom.
Uh, yeah, I have a lot of books. I'm not listening to too many podcasts these days. When I first started, of course, Bigger Pockets was like, I just listened to Bigger Pockets a lot.
Yeah.
That listening to other people's stories, that it was like they were just an average person and I could do it too. So that was big for me. I like Modern Wisdom is a big podcast I like, and Alex Ramosi,
Oh
I
yeah.
listen. Evelyn Wise, I listen to her, and then books a lot. I like reading. I read a lot of books. Now you can get a lot of books in if you're training for an Ironman, by the way, because if you're sitting on a bike for 6 hours and you're listening to a book on 1.5x speed, you
Yeah.
can put a lot of knowledge in.
Yeah.
Um, Anything like any of Ben Hardy's books? Have you read
Okay.
any of his with Dan Sullivan?
Oh yeah.
So like
I'm
10x is
listening
easier
to
than
10x right now.
2x,
Yeah.
Gap in the Gain,
Yeah.
Who Not
Wow.
How. All of those are amazing books. The Road Less Stupid is one of my favorites for a
Okay.
business. It's a business book. It kind of feels like he's yelling at you the whole time,
Okay.
but
Okay.
it's okay.
Well, David
Um,
Goggins-ish. Yeah.
a little
Yeah.
bit of David Goggins. Yeah, Buy Back Your Time with Dan Martell
Okay. Yeah.
is a
Yeah.
really good one if you haven't listened to that. And then, and I read all of the real estate basics like, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Cash Flow Quadrant, Think and Grow Rich.
Mm.
I think it was like The Secrets of a Millionaire Mind.
Oh
What it
yeah.
is. That
Yes.
one's
Yeah.
good. Richest Man in Babylon. All the classics, right?
Oh, I
I
love that.
mean, you have to
Classic.
read them and then you have to read them again. And I
Right.
think that's the big thing too when you're taking in some knowledge is, especially if you haven't been through it yet, all of the things that they're talking about is a lot of theory, right? Like even with real estate investing, it's still just theory. You're hearing it, and it's all hypothetical to you. But when you actually go and do the thing, and then you go back and reread some of those books or re-go through some of those theories that you had tapped in at first time, you hear and see things differently because you learn how to apply them differently and all that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I love that. Especially I mean, all of those ones that you mentioned, the Ben Hardy ones and like Think and Grow Rich, like you got to go revisit those because even every 3 to 6 months, you'll have experienced new things, and then the words on the page hit you differently and affects you differently. And so it is important. It's something that I hadn't done up until maybe a year or so ago. It's like I read that book, I got that. No, you don't have it at all. Like until you
Yeah.
reread it. Yeah.
There's a couple I go back through and like Buy Back Your Time. I go back through The Road Less Stupid. I go back through and like 10x is
Okay.
easier than 2x. 10x is easier than 2x. Is I'm like reading that right now. Again, so
Yeah, that one's
yeah,
affecting me a lot. Like where,
it's so good.
yeah, where I'm putting my time is that's super valuable. But um, we'll see how much time you had to prepare for this one. When your time is done on this earth, Stephanie, whether you are going to heaven or just a lump of dirt in the ground, what do you want to be remembered for from those that you've left behind?
Okay, so I don't know if you tell people this. Full disclosure, you asked me this right before we started, right? So I had like a
Yeah.
minute to think about it. It's a good
Yeah.
question. So I appreciate the heads up. But honestly, I think it comes back to it just is for my daughter. I think because when in some of the things that I do, I do believe I'd like to make a big impact with people. Obviously, I think that the path that I've chosen is I am going to impact a larger, hopefully, group of people, whether that's
Yeah.
10 or 100 or whatever. But really, when it comes down to it, it's like, is it is my daughter going to be proud, and is it going to be something that I'm going to do that's going to set her up for success? And it kind of comes back to, is she going to know that she can achieve her dreams and whatever she wants to do? And
Mm.
so I think I believe in order for her to feel like she can do that is that I have to do it myself. And I don't know that I was like, of course, I was raised in a different time than she's going to be raised. But then growing up, I heard a lot of, I wish I had, or
Mm.
I would have done this opportunity had my situation have been different. And I don't want her to feel like that. And so I feel like I have to follow the things that I want to do to show her that she can do it too, versus talking about it.
Yeah.
So
Love
it's
that.
just kind of, she's like probably the only person who's going to remember me after I die. So
I don't think
hopefully
so,
in a
but
good
okay.
light.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that's it. And I really, especially for women, I really want to, and I think real estate is such a powerful, uh, it's just such a great industry and powerful resource for women to be able to build a lot of independence, both from a financial perspective and a freedom perspective.
Yeah.
Um, like I went back into investing more after I had my daughter because of the time freedom that you have with it.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
I think for women, it's super powerful. And so I hope to also inspire some other women and moms along the way.
See, Effie agrees with me. I thought Effie was gone, but see, I agree. I agree with that, Effie. I think
Maybe
so. I
Effie,
think
hopefully
so.
you'll remember me.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I think, right, it's like, and I think partly Alex Hermosi has, not to go on a tangent on you right at the end here, he
No,
had
you're
a
good.
whole talk about like basically how everybody, like we all die, like we all die. It's a little bit of a morbid conversation, but it is true. And it's like, you just have to do what's important to you and not worry about the naysayers, and just focus on your close circles and the impact you're going to have on, your daughter, your family, whatever.
Yeah, I love
So,
that. Before we part, I know we mentioned the school communities. Would you just holler their names again? And then what's the best way for people to connect with you outside of those communities?
you can connect with me on Instagram. I am on there pretty well every day. But school is the best way to find me. We have Flip and Launch is the free community. So please come and join us in there. We actually have a lot of fun. That's been the best part about the communities, is just to like make real estate fun again, I guess. And then Flip and Grow is the other community. So that's a community you'll have the opportunity, we can work together a bit closer. And I am participating in the school games this month. So I'm going to be on school a lot. And so as of this morning, I was just inside of the top 10. And I'm the only woman on there right now. So I'm
Nice.
trying to hold on for dear life. So if you guys want to come and join us on school December, come and join me. It'll be a
Yeah,
December
do it
tour.
now while it has a big impact.
Yeah.
It'll have a big impact on. Now's a great time, actually. Now that you're mentioning that, because I think a lot of cool things are happening come the new year, and the changing of the guard, whatever you want to say. I think people are going to start coming off the sidelines now, and we're going to see big growth. So if you're flipping, like, get your ducks in a row right now.
Yeah.
That's just my 2 cents. Yeah.
It's a good time of year, even without a major shift like that. But it's such a good time of year, anyways. Like I call it separation season,
Mm,
where people are like, okay, I'm gonna get working on my goals in 2025. Like
yeah.
I'll just wait till January, and it's a good
Yeah.
time. So.
Yeah. I'm just gonna kick my feet up and relax right now while Steph and Nathaniel go and dominate the Aiken and Augusta markets.
That's right.
Yeah.
You guys take a break. You
Yeah.
guys take a break.
Yeah.
So
Well, I appreciate you being here. I'm gonna boot you.
thank you. Okay.
How do I do such? Hey, that was Stephanie Lombardo. Go check out those school communities and go get engaged in there. This is what I've been telling my school community. I know I agree with you, Effie. The 2025 is here already. The best way to get your value out of these communities is to go in there and be active and engage and comment and just build relationships with people back and forth. This is what entrepreneurship is about. It's about building relationships with people like Stephanie that have been there, have done that, have the experience that can help you kind of move yourself along your path and get to where you're trying to get to. That being said, I have a Zoom that I host every week on Thursday at noon Eastern Time called Helping Hands Hour, designed to help you get unstuck in your business, come in and ask questions, role play, whatever you really need. You can go to nathanielhevsepian.com. The mirroring thing always screws me up. To find the link for that, you can leave a comment, HHH, on this video if you don't want to type in that difficult name, and I will get you the link for that. Until next week, later.